Welcome back to the cryptowrld channel, everyone. My name is Josh, and right now, Bitcoin is sitting on the edge of potentially a major breakout above this descending line of resistance, as the price is still playing out this shorter-term bullish divergence and is also approaching a major area of liquidity in the short term, which could potentially cause a short squeeze, which I'll talk about in just a moment, alongside the price of Solana also playing out this short-term bullish divergence, while the price of XRP is continuing the short-term bounce from this level of support. So I'll be talking about all of that and more later in the video, so definitely watch to the end. First of all, starting off on the 4-day Bitcoin price chart, and right now the super trend indicator is still currently sitting in the red, so not much has changed on this chart over the last one day. And if we're taking a look at this weekly Bitcoin chart, at least for now, the weekly Bitcoin MACD is still looking more bearish than it is bullish. But like I've said just recently here on the channel over the last few weeks or so, obviously we've slowed down the amount of bearish momentum, which is telling us potentially the worst is behind us. So once again, it's not necessarily looking extremely bullish right now. It's just telling us that potentially we've already seen most of the bearish momentum within this bearish movement, kind of like what we saw around July 2024 at that stage in the market. And so ultimately, not a lot has changed on this chart over the last one day. And if we're taking a look at this weekly Bitcoin chart, the same can be said about this chart. Once again, not much has changed over the last one day on this weekly Bitcoin chart. Technically speaking, we still have a massive bearish divergence to pay attention to, telling us to not really expect a significant amount of bullish momentum on these larger timeframes, at least anytime soon. But of course, we can see short-term bullish moves on smaller timeframes, like short-term little bounces and reliefs here and there. But of course, once again, don't necessarily expect a massive high momentum movement towards the upside here on the larger timeframes, at least not straight away. But with that being said, taking a look at this 3-day Bitcoin chart, and right now the price of Bitcoin is simply still chopping around sideways within this sideways price range in between major support levels and of course significant resistance. First of all, this significant area of resistance is sitting in between around 86,000 to 88,000. And if we were to see a confirmed breakout with candle closes confirming above 88,000, in that situation, we'll likely see a relief up towards roughly 92,000 as the next point of resistance that I'll be watching. And then above 92,000, I'll be watching around 96,000 as another point of resistance. And as for support to watch out for, based on these 3-day candle closes, we do have this level of support sitting at close to 78,000. And we also have significant support starting at close to 74,000 and going down towards around $70,000 in that lower 70K area, acting as major support. And so these are still the levels to watch out for here on the 3-day time frame. And if we're taking a look at this daily Bitcoin chart, at least as of right now, at the time of recording this video, we're getting extremely close to possibly seeing a breakout above finally this descending line of resistance, which is currently sitting at close to 84,000. And obviously we could see over the last couple of months or so, we've seen many rejections from this descending line of resistance over and over again. So obviously it would be a bullish signal, at least in the somewhat short to mid-term here, if we can finally see at least a solid daily candle close now confirming above this line of resistance. But obviously we still need to wait for confirmation. We still need to actually confirm a candle close above the line to confirm the breakout, and not just a candle wick towards the upside. And so at least at the time of recording this video, there's still that possibility we could see another rejection here until we ultimately confirm the breakout. But once we finally confirm the breakout here, once again, that would be a bullish signal for Bitcoin, and would likely see a continued relief up towards this next area of resistance. But then once again, expect the price to struggle around this area, especially at close to 88,000. And obviously one of the signals that's really helping the price of Bitcoin, at least in the shorter term, is of course this new bullish divergence that I've already been talking about over the last few days. Obviously with that massive bounce right here, with that first massive green candle close here in the price of Bitcoin on the daily time frame, that technically confirmed the higher low in place in the daily Bitcoin RSI, confirming the bullish divergence, as I've already said over the last few days in my last few videos. So once again, as I've been saying recently, this is telling us we're likely now going to see a short-term bullish relief in the price of Bitcoin, or at the very least a bit of choppy sideways price action. So basically a break or a relief from all of the bearish price action, most likely for a couple of weeks, give or take. And so as I've also mentioned over the last few days, obviously I'll not be surprised if at some point in the next few days or over the next 1 or 2 weeks, we ultimately confirm a breakout here. Once again, it could happen pretty much right now. It could happen maybe in a week from now. Either way, it is looking quite likely we'll break this line sometime soon here on the daily time frame, considering we're now playing out this bullish divergence. But remember, once again, we still have other points of resistance to watch out for. So even if we break out above this line, of course, we still have those other levels that we cannot ignore. And I do want to point out a possible double bottom pattern, a W pattern here on the 3-day Bitcoin chart that is possibly forming right now, but still needs to be confirmed. And in order to actually confirm that price pattern and set up a bullish price target, we need to see a confirmed breakout, ideally with a 3-day candle close above around 88,000. So we still have a way to go before actually confirming that. But that's just something that I'm watching out for in the short term. And something else that I'm looking at in the short term is, of course, this area of liquidity that is quickly approaching here. The price is quickly approaching this liquidity, which is sitting at roughly 85,000, as I've also mentioned recently here on the channel. And so as always, the price of Bitcoin tends to move towards where there's a lot of liquidity. It's not a guarantee, but usually the price of Bitcoin, once again, tends to move towards where there's a lot of liquidity. It's kind of acting as a magnet for the price, pulling the price towards these areas. And so of course back here we head towards the downside to wipe out that liquidity towards the downside, causing a bit of a long squeeze, basically liquidating long positions, which causes sell pressure. And right now we're potentially about to see the opposite, which is of course a short squeeze if we first break out above this area. Obviously, if we first confirm a breakout above this line of resistance at close to 84,000 and then break out above around 85,000, because once we break out above 85,000, that would liquidate a bunch of short positions, which can cause a small short squeeze. And in case you're new to all of this, a short squeeze is basically when a bunch of short positions out there, a bunch of traders are getting liquidated on their short positions, which basically means they have to buy back into the underlying asset, in this case Bitcoin, in order to close those shorts. Because in order to actually close a short position in general, you have to essentially buy back into the underlying asset. So that can cause some buying pressure as the shorts get closed or liquidated, and that can liquidate more short positions, further causing a bit of a short squeeze. But I don't necessarily expect a massive short squeeze like this, for example. I don't expect that, because remember, we cannot ignore all of these other charts right here. For example, this massive bearish divergence on the weekly time frame telling us to not expect a massive amount of bullish momentum. And so when we consider all of this information, once again, we first have to actually wait to see a confirmed breakout above this resistance. We have not yet seen that as recording this video, but if we see that, and if we start triggering this short squeeze here with a breakout above around 85,000, we may end up seeing, once again, a small short squeeze, most likely pretty quickly up towards the next resistance, mainly at around 88,000 once again, and then expect the price to start struggling around there, and especially around 92,000 if we first see that breakout above 88,000, and of course these other levels that I talked about. But either way, whether or not we see the breakout right now, or if we ultimately reject again from this descending line of resistance, either way, once again, we now have an active bullish divergence on the daily time frame, telling us to continue to expect a bit of a relief from all of the bearish price action, at least over the next couple of weeks, give or take, as the most likely scenario. And so that's what I'm currently looking at for the price of Bitcoin. Those are my expectations in the shorter term, and of course looking at the bigger picture. And if you want to trade any of these moves in the price of Bitcoin or any other crypto, personally I'm taking a lot of my crypto trades over on 2bit, so I'll make sure to leave a link to 2bit below this video in the description and in the pinned comment. And if you use that link, it'll take you to this page right here where you can claim some massive trading bonuses, like for example up to $50,000 in trading rewards. Or if you're not one of these larger traders here, you can get a $30 sign up bonus and also a 20% deposit rebate up to a max of 200 USDT. So for example, if you deposit $1,000, you get a $200 bonus onto your 2bit account, but only if you use that link. And on top of all of that, if you use the link below this this video to 2bit, you're automatically upgraded to VIP level 1 trading fees, which basically means you get a massive discount on trading fees. You get lowered trading fees over on 2bit, but remember, only if you use that link. So if you're going to be trading crypto anyway, you might as well check this out. Once again, using the link below this video to 2bit. And in case you're wondering, 2bit is a no KYC exchange, which means you can access it from basically any country in the world without needing any KYC. But as always, check your local regulations when it comes to trading crypto. And for whatever reason, if you don't want 2bit as an exchange, there's also BTNX as another exchange out there that I also trade on. So I'll also make sure to leave a link to BTNX below this video. And that link, by the way, to BTNX will take you to this sign up page where you can claim an exclusive 10% discount on all trading fees forever on your BTNX account. But that massive fee discount over here is only available if you use that link. So once again, check it out if you want to get that massive fee discount. And in case you're wondering, BTNX is also a no KYC exchange. But with that being said, taking a look at Ethereum on the weekly time frame, and right now, technically speaking, Ethereum is simply still within a larger bearish trend, also known as a bear market. But just in the shorter term, obviously, we are still running into significant support sitting in between around 1.4k to 1550, and at least so far we are finding a lot of support in that area as expected. We're currently seeing a bit of a bounce from that area. And ultimately, in the somewhat shorter term here, I expect similar price action for Ethereum as what I said for Bitcoin. So of course, if Bitcoin plays out a bit of a relief here in the short term with this bullish divergence, expect something similar, at least in the short term, for Ethereum. But remember, even if we see a slight little relief, a bounce from support in the short term, that does not necessarily mean the Ethereum bear market is over. And so honestly, there's not much else to add here for Ethereum. That's what I expect in the somewhat shorter term. But of course, the longer term situation still not looking too good. So with that being said, getting straight into the price of Solana on the weekly time frame. And right now, Solana is once again testing or retesting this previous area of support, now acting as new resistance, and that's sitting in between around 120 to 130. And over the last couple of days or so, we already saw a bit of a short-term rejection from within this area in between 120 to 130. So once again, that is still acting as resistance. So expect the price to potentially struggle, most likely struggle in between 120 to 130. But if we can finally see a confirmed breakout, ideally with a weekly candle close back above 130, obviously that would be very bullish, at least in the short term, for the price of Solana. But obviously, at least for now, that remains to be seen. So continue to expect the price to struggle within this area, at least as of right now. And while the price is retesting this area of support, now acting as resistance once again, of course, we're now playing out this short-term bullish divergence, as I've already been talking about over the last few days here on the channel. So once again, this is telling us we're most likely going to see just a slight bullish relief, or maybe just some choppy sideways price action. So basically a break or a relief from all of the bearish price action, at least in the somewhat shorter term. Usually a bullish divergence on the daily time frame plays out over a couple of weeks, give or take. And so in other words, don't necessarily expect massive bearish price action like this at really any point within the next 1 or 2 weeks. Maybe at some point in the future, once again, maybe in a month from now, it's possible we resume a larger bearish move, but at least over the next 1 or 2 weeks, expect a break or a relief from all of the bearish price action. And by the way, if we were to actually see a confirmed breakout back above 130, in that situation, I'll be looking at around 136 and also at around 144 to 145 as other important points of resistance based on this daily Solana chart. And with that being said, taking a look at the price of XRP on the 3-day time frame, and technically speaking on this chart right here, this massive bearish divergence is still technically active, as I've been saying for a long time now on the channel. So once again, this is telling us to not necessarily expect significant bullish momentum anytime soon. And obviously over the last few months, that's exactly been playing out as expected and has been causing this shorter term bearish trend here on the 12-hour time frame, forming lower highs and lower lows. But of course, during the bearish trend, we see the occasional short-term bounce, short-term relief here and there during the bearish trend. And that is what is currently happening here in the short term, as we could see. So ultimately, once again, at least for now, we're currently bouncing from this line of support, which is still sitting at approximately $1.74. So if we see another retracement, expect a lot of support around there. And as for resistance, I'll mainly be watching around $2.14 to $2.15 as a major point of resistance here. And if we could see a breakout above around $2.15, in that situation, we could possibly see a relief all the way up towards around $2.40 247. And as I always say, the price of XRP, along with a lot of the major altcoins out there, will likely follow similar price action to what Bitcoin is doing. So for example, if Bitcoin continues to play out this shorter term bullish divergence, expect a continued relief in the short term for XRP and a lot of the major altcoins, and vice versa. If Bitcoin ultimately sees a rejection over the next 1 or 2 days from this line of resistance, expect maybe a slight rejection in the short term for XRP. So definitely pay attention to the price of Bitcoin. Even if you're not a Bitcoin holder, if you're just in the altcoin market, still pay attention to what Bitcoin is doing, because usually Bitcoin tends to lead the market most of the time for crypto. And with that being said, taking a look at the price of Chainlink on the daily time frame. And right now, Chainlink, like a lot of these other cryptos, are currently playing out this bullish divergence on the daily time frame, with lower lows confirmed in the price and higher lows confirmed in the daily Chainlink RSI. So once again, this is telling us to expect a slight bullish relief, or at the very least a bit of choppy sideways price action. So a break or a relief from all of the bearish price action, but technically speaking, we're still currently within a larger bearish trend. We're potentially just seeing a short-term relief during the bearish trend, kind of like what we saw back here, for example. And as for support and resistance to watch out for, obviously we have that major point of support at around $10, which is pretty much exactly where the price of Chainlink bounced from, as we could see, at around $10. And I would also expect some support at close to $11 based on this daily candle close right here at the low. And as for resistance, we're currently running into this previous Fibonacci level of support, now acting as short-term resistance, and that's sitting at around 1270 to 1280 approximately. But if we could see a confirmed breakout with at least a solid daily candle close above 1280, ideally above $13, in that situation, the next major point of resistance is sitting in between around 1490 to 1550. So roughly around $15, give or take. And we could also find a small amount of resistance at around $14 based on this short-term high right here. And so that is the larger situation for the price of Chainlink, but that's what I'm expecting in the short term, at least for now. And once again, if you want to trade any of these moves in the price of any crypto, check out those links below this video to those exchanges if you want to claim those massive bonuses that are only available using those links. And if you want to actually know how you can trade crypto, no matter if the price is bullish, bearish, or chopping around sideways, you can profit from all of that price action by watching these videos popping up right here on your screen. The video in the top left shows you how you can profit from bullish or bearish price action using long positions or short positions, and the video in the bottom left shows you how you can easily profit from choppy sideways price action. But anyway, that is everything that I have to say for today. I really hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you all in the next video.